YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with my pre-week 3 college football power rankings, the way rankings should be, in my opinion. What I base it off of, how good teams are, who they play, how they execute against good teams. It's not based off the school name or how they were a year ago. I think that's how AP poll and really any poll, college football playoff poll, how they run things. I don't agree with it. I think over time, the correct teams, the best teams will be at the top here. But 2 games in, this is who belongs in the top 10, in my opinion. At the end of the video, I'll go over teams that just missed the cut or teams that are good enough to eventually be in the top 10. Right before we get started, subscriber goal is at 40K by the end of this year. Please help us out by subscribing. Full NFL and college football content every single week throughout the season. We also have plenty of off-season content as well covering the NFL draft. So you're going to want to subscribe. You're going to want to turn notifications on, click the like button. Check us out on Twitter, always tweeting during live college and NFL games. Number 10, I do a top 10. At the end of the video, we'll talk about some more teams that just missed. Number 10 is going to be the Wisconsin Badgers. Surprising team here. Last week, I did not have them ranked in the top 10, as you can see there. I put them in the top 10. There's not a lot of teams that played challenging games or good teams. Those teams that did are at the top of my rankings or they have a loss. You know, I don't have a problem with a team having a loss being ahead of an undefeated team depending on who they play, but it's too early for that time right now. All these teams are 1-1. A 2-0 team should be ahead of them as long as they're executing at a pretty high level, and I think Wisconsin is, and I'm surprised by them. I did not have my preseason top 25. I didn't like the way they played last year. I didn't think there was going to be that much change, maybe a little better, but so far, you know, a little easy schedule, somewhat of an easy schedule, but South Florida, they beat 49-0. Central Michigan, they beat 61-0. They have not let up a single point yet, so they're executing, even though they're not playing the best team. South Florida's not the worst team. And there's a lot of, like I said, other teams that are supposed to be better because their school name and who the AP poll has ahead of Wisconsin. Why aren't they ahead of them? Because I don't think that, they're playing the same quality teams, skill level teams, but they're not executing as well as Wisconsin. Wisconsin should be number 10. I can't wait for them to play Michigan on the 21st. So who's at number 9? It's another team that wasn't ranked last week. It's Maryland. It is the Maryland Terps. At number 9, they've been dominant, absolutely dominant. Josh Jackson, liked him a lot 2 years ago at Virginia Tech. And last year, college football missed him, and he transfers to Maryland, and he has been just lights out so far. Where are they on the AP? They're number 21 on the AP poll, which is a little ridiculous. And same situation is Wisconsin. You'll say, well, Maryland hasn't played anybody either, just like some other teams that I should have in. You're going to say that I should have in here that are not. Not really true because they did beat a ranked team, Syracuse, 63-20 as well. They dominated them, but they're also executing better than some of those teams that just because they're big name, they're top 10. It just really makes no sense. So Maryland has been pretty fun to watch, I'd say. Josh Jackson, we missed him last year. VTech lost a good one there in the transfer pool, and then Maryland gets their hands on him, and he's been very fun to watch. Number 8 is going to be the Florida Gators. Last week they were number 9, so they move up one spot. They had a pretty solid win with them last week compared to some other teams, but it was a sloppy play game against Miami, so that's why they're at 9, but still in the top 10 because they're a good team, and they had a somewhat solid win, but Miami now 0-2. Not looking so solid, but still better than a lot of these teams that other teams are playing. And then Florida gets a big win over Tennessee Martin. So they definitely belong in the top 10 still. I just want to see more, like a lot of other teams I'll talk about, but I want to see more from the Gators. I like their defense a lot. Defense looks really good. Offense, it took a bit to get going last year. I think it's kind of the same thing this year. So hopefully it gets going soon. They move up a spot in my rankings. Number 7 is the Auburn Tigers, and they actually moved down from 4 to 7. It's really not a lot that they did to move down, maybe a little bit, honestly, but it's mainly other teams getting some big wins in their second game against good teams in the way they execute, so it's mainly them moving ahead of Auburn. Auburn was at 4 last week that I actually think, they were the 4th best team, like by the end of the year. after everything's said and done? No, I did not. But they had an impressive win over a very good Oregon Ducks team. So they were deserving, and they're still deserving to be well in this top 10 at number 7 because of that good win they have. They did struggle with Tulane a little bit, I should say, offensively. I can't really hurt them too much for that. It's just other teams got some big wins and or are executing a little better than Auburn, but definitely deserving of being in here. They're at number 7. Number 6 is Ohio State. Ohio State moved up 2 spots. They went from 8 to number 6, and very impressive. I thought that game against Cincinnati would be a lot closer. If I'm being honest, Cincinnati looks like they are a pretty good team. To beat them 42-0 was pretty impressive. There was some questions. Them being at 8 for me because week 1, they did have a big win against FAU, but they did give up 21 points. Yeah, it was late in the game. That could be a legitimate excuse, and it kind of looked like that against Cincinnati. They went full go. That's the reason they were 8 last week. I just thought there was 7 more impressive teams based on how they executed and who they played. But then very good job from Ohio State to have a dominant win over Cincinnati. Not the greatest competition, still I do like Cincinnati, but they went up to number 6. Number 5 is going to be Oklahoma, and they went from 3 to 5. It's not really anything they did. Once again, it's just other teams with super impressive win are more deserving to be higher. They play South Dakota. Yeah, they put up 70 points on them, but they played South Dakota. The Houston win, I like that win. I think Houston scored a little bit late, so maybe it's the game felt more like a bigger win than it actually was. So I do like the Houston win a lot. They're at number 3. I like the way they execute in that game. And then the South Dakota game, you can't really take much from it because it's South Dakota. But I still think they're a top 5 team. When it's all said and done, I think they should easily be in the top 5. But from what they've done, I think there's 4 teams more deserving. Number 4 is going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. They were at number 2 last week, and they moved to 4. And I'll say it again, it's more of what the teams that I have ahead of them, what they've done, their resume. I'm really looking at resumes. That's really what how it should be. That's the fairest way to do all this. And then Georgia's been impressive. Very good execution, both sides of the ball. The Vanderbilt win's a pretty good win in terms of talent level, who they are. And Murray State's not going to cut it, though. I want to see them play. They play Arkansas State this week. They play Notre Dame in a couple weeks. That's going to be a big-time game for both those teams. But Georgia, very good team. When it's all said and done, might be better than the 4th best team based on the talent level. But I just think some other teams with their wins that they got should be and are higher ranked than Georgia on my ranking system. Number 3 is Alabama. They were number 1 last week and moved down to 3. And I got to say it again, broken record at this point, but it's what the 2 teams ahead of them is why Bama dropped down. Bama, if I had to put money, if every single college football team, there was a bracket, a playoff, every single college football team, and I had to put money on a team that was most likely to win it all, it would be Alabama. So talent-wise, I think they're the best team in the country. Who they've played, Duke win is pretty solid, but New Mexico State's not going to cut it. Who they've played, do they deserve to be number 1 with every team starting off even in the beginning of the year? I don't think so. You can argue it because their execution's there. Like I said, that plays a part, and they're very dominant, like I said. But number 3, that's where they belong. These other 2 teams show me more right now. Number 2, it's going to be the LSU Tigers. Fantastic win against Texas Longhorns there. So the LSU goes from 6 to 2. They play Georgia Southern. Impressive, but not an impressive opponent. That doesn't really show me a lot. So that's where I'm at 6, but I know they're a dominant team, and I can see their offense and their quarterback got better after Georgia Southern game. They go on and play Texas. And really the only negative thing I can say is I thought their defense would play a little better, but they did play a top team in Texas. But the offense was fantastic. It's awesome to see LSU finally has an offense. We saw it last year, but now we really know it. They finally have an offense, but mainly they finally have a quarterback. Joe Burrow looked like he played like the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. It's only 1 game. I'm getting a little excited, but I got to stop myself from getting a little overhyped because I was blown away. I was tweeting about that like crazy too. Joe Burrow was fantastic. This team with the win like that over Texas definitely deserves to be number 2. Strongly considered for number 1. But number 1 for me is the Clemson Tigers, who were at 5 last week. Why they're at 5? I thought the other teams executed a little better in their 1 win. They played Georgia Tech. I thought they could have executed a little better. I thought it was kind of Travis Etienne just going out there and putting on a show. So that's why they're at 5. And just like that, they move up all the way to 1 because they get a true test in Texas A&M, who's a very good team. I like Texas A&M a lot. Very good team. And why? Because they're a very good offense. And Clemson held them to 10 points, and I'm really going to call it 3 points because it was a last-second touchdown for Texas A&M. And I don't care what people say. People are going to base A&M's offense off that game alone, and that's wrong. Texas A&M has a very, very good offense. For Clemson to go out there and do that, they show me they can execute on both sides of the ball. I wish they would have scored a little more, just to be in a perfect world, but the offense was good. Trevor Lawrence was slinging it, and the receivers were great, obviously, and Travis Etienne is just so fun to watch. He might be my Heisman pick right now. We'll start to talk Heisman a little closer to the time. I think it's a little too early for that, but I enjoy doing the rankings every week because we can see how it should. This is really how it should be. And we heard, if you watch the LSU and Texas game, Herb Street was talking about this too, and this is why, the exact reasons he was explaining is why I started this last week, and we'll continue to do this every single week. So I really enjoy it. I think the right teams will be at the top at the end. But let's talk about some more teams here. Drop from the rankings. A&M I had at 7, and then Texas I had at 10. Two teams that I think, like I said, when it's all said and done, who are the 10 most talented teams, they very well could be in there. Right now they're 1-1. I don't have a problem with putting a team with a loss over a team that's undefeated, just not yet. They're 1-1, okay? So we need a little more here. But very good teams there. Teams I have my eye on. Notre Dame. Notre Dame, another one. When it's all said and done, I think a top 10 talented team. Right now they played only Louisville. They only had one game. They already had a bye. And they looked a little shaky against Louisville, So I think Notre Dame's a good team. They're going to have a tough task against Georgia in 2 weeks. Even with that loss, I think at the end of the year they could be a top 10 teams in terms of talent. They do have a tough schedule this year, unlike last year, so we'll see what they can do. A team I'm excited about this year with their pass rush. Utah, I think a good team too. They're 2-0. I gave them some consideration. Just they played BYU and they played NIU. I wish I'd seen a little more from them. Michigan, that's one of those teams that because of their name and, I guess the names they have on and the coaching staff and on their roster, their team, that's why they're a top 10 team, I guess. They have not shown me that. I was surprised by how high they were ranked before the season started. If you remember, I'm not high on Michigan. They do have some talented guys here and there. I have an eye on them because of those talented guys. They can take over. They can start to get better. And they should be better than they are. But right now, they've been very disappointing. But they are 2-0. Oregon, I think should be a 2-0 team. I blame the coaching staff for not putting that game away against Auburn. They're a very good team. A lot of NFL talent on that team. And I think that it's possible they can win the year out. The Pac-12 is actually a little better than expected. A couple good teams. There's quite a few on this list actually. So if Oregon wins out, which is very possible with their talent, they're a team we can be talking about towards the top at the end of the year. They're going to want that Auburn game back, though, when it comes to that point. Central Florida haven't really played any good competition yet, but like always, they're a very good team. They got a solid competition coming up with Stanford. It's a team I got my eye on for potential undefeated team. Cal upset Washington. So it's one of those Pac-12 teams that oddly has some very good defense. So if they can start to develop their offense, it's a team to watch out for. I really don't plan on them being in my top 10, but it's just a team to keep an eye on. Virginia, who's extremely underrated, has talent on both sides of the ball, play very fast, physical. I think they have NFL talent. I think a very underrated team. They're going to have some tough opponents coming up. I know they have Notre Dame earlier this year, and they play in a very good ACC. So Virginia is a team that I think is underrated and on the come up. USC, who looks surprisingly good even though Daniels went down. Slovis looks actually very solid, which is crazy. Another good quarterback from USC. So, but they look good, and they'll have some good teams to play this year too. Pac-12 looks like it's actually getting stronger. I like that some teams actually have some defense. So the Pac-12 teams on here. So those are teams I have my eye on. But I really enjoy making this video. I always looked at when I was younger, looked at college football rankings and just always had a problem with them. They're not doing them the right way. They're basing it off of last year. They're basing it off what the school name is. This is the way it should be, and it's a good way to stop teams from playing those beat-up games. Teams shouldn't be playing New Mexico State in week 2. They shouldn't be playing Murray State in week 2. That should not be happening. Nobody wants to watch that. So this is the way rankings should be done, in my opinion. Let me know your guys' thoughts, your guys' rankings. Everyone can have their own system. It's an opinion. So tell me a little bit how you think rankings should be, And give me your rankings based off that. If you want to use my system, how the rankings should be, list them in the comments. I love to see different rankings. Appreciate everyone. Please subscribe. We got you covered in NFL and college football. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.